You're listening to The Stephen Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Tauriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show, as always. Thank you for tuning in. So, a whole lot of stuff to get into. We're going to try and get to all of it. Probably not going to be able to. There's that much stuff. You know how I always say the news cycle is insane. That is on purpose. We are in an information war. That is correct. What you see on the news, it is all strategic. And so is this show, as a matter of fact. My purpose is to inform my listeners. Inform people, make good decisions. Uninformed people make bad decisions. And right now, we are witnessing what happens when you have uninformed people making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And unfortunately, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I know that sounds depressing, but I will tell you, I promise it's going to get better. The pendulum is going to swing the other way, and in some cases, I kind of see it starting to swing that way already. There's a lot of different fronts on this war, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of different fronts. We have a war on religion. We have a war on information. We have a war in culture. And believe it or not, we have a war internationally, kinetic war with China and different various countries that they don't want you to know about. And I just read just a little bit ago, 500,000 casualties in the Russia-Ukraine war. 500,000 people dead. That's something they don't want you to know about. Ukraine is not winning this war, ladies and gentlemen. This war is nothing that they tell you it is. And in fact, nothing is what they tell you it is. Everything they tell you is a lie. So I just need people to be prepared. I told my friend the other day, he texted me and he said, you know, what's going on with these ships off the coast of Alaska? He was like, I thought Ukraine was winning this war. This is what I'm talking about. We have a lot of people that are being manipulated by this media. I think the key point that people need to realize is that the media is now an arm of the federal government. We have state-run media right now. Even though they abide to the capitalist system, they make money, profits, so on and so forth. But when you have people like Chuck Schumer come on and say this...
Let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
That, ladies and gentlemen, tells you that we officially have a media that is a part of our government. And the media, the government, are colluding to retain power and prevent the American people from getting their country back. So like I said, we got a lot to get into. I just seen that number, that 500,000, 500,000 casualties, 500,000 dead from this Russia-Ukraine war. It is so bad that they are literally having to, in Ukraine, they're having to dig up old graves from fallen soldiers in the past so that they can bury the new soldiers from this war. Now talk about real issues. We have first world problems here, folks. First world problems. Like, what pronouns do you identify? And diversity, equity, inclusion. Is there enough gayness on your beer can? That kind of stuff. First world problems, folks. First world problems. So, have you guys ever heard of the generation cycle? Or it could be called the cycle of history. It's used to describe a pattern that societies or civilizations go through over time. I know you probably heard of this statement before, but it goes like this. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times, and hard times create strong men. So right now, I think we are in the cycle. We are in the stage of weak men creating hard times. There's no doubt about it. These are indeed hard times, ladies and gentlemen. They are. They're hard times and they're very dark times. We are going down a very dark path. And you have to ask yourself, well, who is bringing us down this dark path? And I'm sure you probably noticed it around 2015. Maybe some of you have noticed it a little bit before, like I did, probably around 2012, 2011. But we are indeed going down this dark path. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of this started with Barack Obama. When Barack Obama said he was going to fundamentally change this country, and he doesn't need Congress, all he needs is a pen and a phone, rest assured, that's right around the time things started getting bad. And so back to this generation cycle, we are in the stage of weak men creating hard times. And the reason why I say it's weak men creating hard times is the casualties in Maui are going to be off the charts. Something is going on over there. I don't know what it is, but the county officials, the public officials over there in Maui are not being transparent. And a lot of people are getting frustrated. A lot of the residents are getting frustrated because last time they reported there was 111 to 113 dead. Well, a little bit after that, they reported that 1,200 people are missing. And just today, they reported that most of that 1,200 are children. So this is going to turn out to be one of the biggest catastrophes to ever hit this country in decades. I mean, we're talking 9/11 status casualties here. Granted, 9/11 was, I think, a little over 3,000 casualties, or 3,000 deaths. This is 1,200. And a lot of people are getting frustrated because they're not coming out and saying who's missing, what's going on here. It's a disaster. It's a full-blown disaster. And unfortunately, the first couple days before FEMA got there, apparently everything was going pretty well. I mean, as well as it could be. I mean, things were organized. They were handing out food. The community was taking care of the community. And then FEMA got involved. And now everything's a giant catastrophe with cover-ups, and you can fill in the blanks. You probably already know what's going on. Nobody's being transparent. Nobody's giving answers. And so, naturally, you have conspiracies building up. This is what happens when the government is not transparent. When you're not honest with the American people, people start to generate their own theories about what happened. And so this is when you have, these theories of direct energy weapons coming from the sky and bursting buildings into flames. This is, one of the theories is it was a giant conspiracy to, push the people away from their property because you're going to have mass land ownership or mass land transfers, and all the celebrities' houses are perfectly fine and haven't been touched, even though some of them are in the middle of a burnt town. And I don't mean burnt, I mean incinerated. This town looked like a picture of Nagasaki after we dropped the bomb. I've never seen anything like this. Like I said in the previous show, when we talked about the Maui fires, there was a dog in the middle of the street, cooked. I mean, black, burnt, cooked, as if the thing didn't even have time to move. And so you have to wonder, this thing must have been moving fast. It was a complete disaster. And the reason why I brought up weak men creating hard times is I got a story here that's going to cook your noodle. And we discussed a little bit of this in the previous show when we were talking about the Maui fires, how there was 2 huge mistakes done by the city officials over there. And this is one of them. Hawaii official who allegedly withheld water from firefighters says equity comes first. So I played you the audio of this gentleman talking about how water equity is more important. Obviously, he's a woke Democrat, and this is proof that leftist ideologies can indeed be extremely deadly to people. This is what happens when you prioritize your woke agenda over competency. A Hawaii official accused of withholding water from firefighters battling Maui's deadly wildfire said last year that the state should make access to water conditional on conversations about equity. Mr. Kaleo Manuel, who is Deputy Director of the Hawaii Commission on Water Resource Management, has been under scrutiny since local media reported that he delayed releasing water to firefighters who were battling last week's wildfires, which killed at least 111 people. It does me no honor to tell you that it's probably going to be a lot more, because I would imagine if there's 1,200 people missing, then that means there's 1,200 people dead. I can't confirm that, but that would make sense, because if not, where did these people go for the last 3 or 4 days? Granted, maybe some of them swam to the other island. I don't even know if that's possible. Maybe someone got on a boat and they haven't reported in. It's hard telling. But you can rest assured that if there's 1,200 people missing, then most likely it's probably 1,200 people dead from this fire. The reason why it's taking them so long is they're having to recover bodies from the homes. So the 111 people that they found so far were people in their cars, in the streets, and people that they could see openly. Now they're going in and they're searching the buildings. Well, whatever's left of them. But now they're saying that people are so badly vaporized that they're having to use dental records to find their identity, which could be pretty, obviously pretty time consuming. I was actually thinking today that why can't they just use Google Maps, cross-reference the number to the address from Google Maps, and maybe find their identity that way? I don't know what they're doing over there, but rest assured, if the government's involved, it's going to turn into a giant disaster. So anyways, back to the article. The West Maui Land Company alleged in the August 10th letter to Manuel that his commission declined its request to divert streams to fill reservoirs until the wildfires worsened and caused significant devastation, according to Honolulu Civil Beat. Sources said Manuel was responsible for the delay. They said Manuel asked the company to consult with a local farmer about the impacts of diverting water before he would approve the request. Manuel only released the water 5 hours after the request was made, wrote the West Maui Land Company, which operates 3 water providers on the island. Quote, "We watched the devastation around us without the ability to help," the company said in a letter. "We anxiously awaited the morning knowing that we could have made more water available to MFD if our request had been immediately approved." This is why it's important to put competency over wokeism ideologies. This person, this guy, this Kaleo Manuel, he needs to be tried for involuntary manslaughter. He needs to be arrested, shackled, and spend the rest of his life in prison. What this guy did is unacceptable. He essentially delayed these fires. Now, you can't say that if the people would have had water, then this wouldn't have happened. But how can you not come to the conclusion that a fire raging for 5 hours with absolutely no water, and when I say no water, I mean not even the firefighters had water. So you're talking about a fire that raged for 5 hours, and this guy delayed water. You serious? And it doesn't help his case that a month before that, or a year before that, he was talking about water conservation and equity. And so instead of firing him, they transferred him to a different department. This guy needs to be tried for involuntary manslaughter. He needs to be jailed, shackled, perp-walked, and spend the rest of his life in prison. This is absolutely unacceptable. Why would you put the conservation of water over people's lives? Now, did he know that this was going to turn out to be this bad? I don't know. But wouldn't that make sense to any competent person out there? That if somebody's asking you for water to put out a fire, you give it to them? You don't wait 5 hours? Now, maybe there's more to the story. I don't know. I'm going to play devil's advocate. Maybe there's more to the story. Now, I read a story of an interviewee on the island over there, and he was telling the reporter that he's seen a fire outside of his house that just started. It was small, manageable. He got to his hose, turned on the spigot, no water. So he's like, that's weird. Went inside his house, was going to fill a bucket with water from the shower, no water. He goes outside, goes to the fire truck, to the firefighters down the street. And guess what? They don't have water. So you're talking about a disaster that could have been prevented if this one guy that talks about conserving water and how water needs to be equitable, if this guy would have just turned on the damn water. But what's going to bake your noodle even more is he actually diverted water to the I would say, higher end part of the island. So essentially where all the rich people live. And I shit you not, when you look at aerial video, there is an entire section that doesn't even look like it's touched. And it's all the giant homes, the waterfront houses, green grass, ginormous homes right there on the water, not even touched. And then literally across the street where there wasn't water, everything's burnt to a crisp. Nothing there. So this guy is in a shitload of trouble. And so I don't think just transferring him to another department is going to work. Now, there was another guy that had partial responsibility. He was the one responsible for not sounding the alarm system. However, I think his excuse is a little bit more acceptable. I mean, not to me, but, his excuse, I guess, could be plausible. He actually said he didn't sound the alarm because that alarm system is actually for tsunamis. It's a tsunami signal. It's a tsunami alarm system. And so he got on the podium and he said, if I would have sounded the alarm, the people in the town are used to, when hearing that alarm, running for the mountain. Because obviously if a tsunami's coming, you want to get the high ground. However, he said the mountain was on fire too. So he said he was afraid to pull the alarm because he knew people were going to run into the fire that was raging up on top of the mountain. However, wouldn't you rather just pull the alarm and at least just let people know? Some of these people were burnt. They're burnt inside their homes, like in their kitchens. Like they didn't even have a chance. They had no idea what was even going on. Like I said, there was a dog that was dead in the middle of the road, as if the thing just died mid-run. Like he didn't even have time to get out. And so this fire was raging at 100 yards a minute. This guy should have sounded that alarm. And so his story is starting to come up a little bit shaky too, because he says that alarm system's only for tsunamis. When reporters actually dug into the story, they found out that it's actually not specifically just for tsunamis, it's also for fires too. So this guy resigned Friday, which is probably a good idea, but I think both of these people need to be charged with murder, or at least involuntary manslaughter. So I don't know if they can be, but these people are going to have to live the rest of their lives knowing that they could have prevented maybe 1,200 deaths. Imagine having that on your conscience. I don't think I could. So may these two live forever. That I just wanted to get into because that goes to that first statement that I made about the generational cycle, how weak men are creating hard times. Weak men are not just creating hard times, they're creating deadly times. They're creating dangerous times. And unfortunately, it's not going to get better because these types of woke ideologies, this DEI, this diversity, equity, inclusion bullshit that they're shoving down our throats in every aspect of our country is being implemented everywhere. In our energy sector, that's the one that's most concerning. These people are so concerned about their climate change religion that they're actually prioritizing windmills and solar panels over just getting people electricity. So now what you're going to see is blackouts and brownouts, and I guarantee you, people that live in parts of the country that get below freezing, you're going to start seeing people freezing to death because there's not going to be electricity to power their homes. And I guarantee you, and these people are worried about global warming. Well, I guarantee you more people die from the cold than they will global warming. This is the problem we have. There has to be a balance. There is no balance here. We are spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on nobody even knows what. Honestly, windmills and solar panels. Windmills and solar panels. Mind you, windmills and solar panels that come from China. Everything this government touches, it destroys. Everything. We have one of the most ineffective, inefficient, wasteful, bloated governments and Congress this country has ever seen. And my guess is it's because it's filled with a bunch of people like Khalil Manuel, the water conservationist in Maui. It's filled with a bunch of left radical ideologues that prioritize their radical agenda over just competence, over just being competent. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with this generational cycle where weak men are creating hard times. The upside on that, and this is where I tell you I see light at the end of the tunnel, is that these hard times are going to create strong men. So, like my kids, they're going to have to grow up in this horrendous country that these people built for them. They certainly aren't going to grow up into a country I got handed to me. That is for sure. It is a night and day difference from when I was growing up to where my kids are growing up. Not just for them personally, like their schools, the social medias, the transgenderism in the schools, all the peer pressure, the record high teen suicides. Not just them personally, but financially as well. When it's more expensive for everything, it makes it kind of difficult for the little things that parents used to do with their kids when I was little, like go to the movies, go out to dinner, go to the water park, go to the theme park, just go, you know what I mean? Actually spend quality family time. Families are finding it harder and harder to do that now because it costs too much money. And so this is the type of America the Democrat Party wants for you. And you know what? I really have to get out of the habit of saying just the Democrat Party, because it's not just the Democrat Party. Yeah, the Democrat Party is 95% of it, but the other 5% is rhino Republicans and the deep state Washington corrupt establishment. They're uniparty. These are the people that are telling their constituents that they hate each other on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, and then behind the scenes, they're actually giving fist bumps on the floor while they're injecting a bunch of pork into the next stimulus bill that the American taxpayers are going to have to pay for. So don't listen to anything these people say. There is a handful of Congress people that are actually looking out for the constituents. And unfortunately, they don't even last that long. So in order to stay in politics for a career, like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Jerry Nadler, Adam Schiff, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, and the list goes on. I mean, the list is a freaking mile long. So if you want to stay in politics for 50 years, you unfortunately have to be useless, worthless, corrupt, lying, and incompetent. Okay? Because every single one of these people are all multimillionaires. They never pump their own gas. They probably haven't stepped foot in a grocery store. And, well, for instance, Nancy Pelosi. Remember she did that video where she was eating a $16 a pint ice cream standing in front of two $25,000 Viking refrigerators? Kind of a real Marie Antoinette moment. Like a let them eat cake kind of moment. So anyways, that's why I wanted to start at the top. That's why I wanted to start the topic out with weak men creating hard times. We are in the hard times right now that is being created by weak men. But the good news is, like I said, these hard times are going to create strong men. Hopefully it's very soon, because the situation that this government has created for us, in particular this Biden administration from day one, you can go down the list of policies. I'm not trying to be partisan here. You can go down the list of policies that this administration has implemented, and every single one of them has been a disaster for the American people. From the southern border being canceled all the way to the Paris Climate Accord. Freaking disaster. Spending trillions and trillions of dollars. This administration has spent almost $7 trillion in a little over 2.5 years. Where the hell is that money at? Where did it go? What did you get out of it? You're talking about $7 trillion in 2.5 years. And you got what? A $700 check that just increased inflation? And this is the craziest thing of it all. This is how much disdain this administration has for the American people. They had the balls to call it the Inflation Reduction Act. So they literally sat around a table and said, so what's the biggest problem that's facing the voters today? And they probably said inflation. Said, good, we'll call this the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff they do. I mean, literally they'll poke you in the chest, lie to your face, and say, what are you going to do about it? Well, folks, what are we going to do about it? The only thing you can do, there's one thing that the founders gave us, our vote. That is it. That is the only thing that we can do as American citizens. There is one more thing that I was thinking of, and I'll discuss that here in a little bit. But as for now, the only thing that we can do is vote. That is it. And if you're like me, I think they even got that system rigged. I think the 2020 election was rigged. You guys just heard the last episode I did, how he talked about how Bill Barr was complicit in not investigating or even shutting down an investigation into voter fraud in Michigan that we now find out found 8 to 10,000 completed voter registration cards in the state of Michigan. A huge scandal that was investigated, that the investigation was completed, turned into the FBI, and that's where it went to die, never to be seen again. So we have an FBI that's working against the American people. We have an administration that's working against the American people. We have a Congress that's seemingly working against the American people. We have an establishment that's working against the American people. We have donors. We have the corporate cronies. Every single sector of this country has been taken over by the establishment, and the American people are getting screwed, man. There is no middle class anymore. There is only lower class, and that's it. And the rich elites. That's it. There is no middle class anymore. You're either ultra wealthy or you're poor. That's it. We're not struggling, we're drowning. Okay? There's a big difference. I grew up in a time when I first had my kids, it was a struggle. Okay? Back in the 2000s, 2005, 2006, 2007, it was a struggle. But I could still get a $16 an hour job and live pretty good. Have an apartment, have a car payment, have insurance, have everything that you needed. Granted, you're not rich on getting paid $16 an hour, but you can have a 2-bedroom apartment, a car, insurance, phones, and live. You could still live. You can't live on that right now. You got to make 6 figures a year to have any type of normal financially semi-free life. And that doesn't mean you're going out to dinner every night by any means. That is literally a 6 figures you can literally get by, maybe save some money every now and then that you're probably going to have to end up having to spend because of medical insurance is too high and you're going to have to pay for medical bills. So every single sector of this economy is a disaster. Every single section of this country is a disaster, from education all the way up to the economy. There's no freaking way this is sustainable. This is unsustainable. It's unsustainable. People can't keep going like this. It can't happen. It can't happen. I see it, man. I see it. I see it in my fellow Americans. I see it when I go out there and I talk to people. I talk to a lot of people every single day. And I'm telling you, I see it. People are struggling. They're beyond struggling. They're drowning. We have, for the first time ever in American history, $1 trillion in credit card debt. The American people are $1 trillion in credit card debt. Which means people are having to pay for groceries. They're having to pay for gas. They're having to pay for everyday essentials with credit cards. This is unsustainable. Period. And then what makes it worse is incompetent leaders like this guy in Hawaii. They held out giving water to people on Maui so that they could put out the fires that just incinerated their whole community. So think about think about the situation they're in. So like I said, we have first world problems. What they're dealing with over there, that's like some third world issues. That's like the shit they deal with like in Africa, in Zimbabwe, and stuff like that in Ecuador. Like that is third world stuff. That environment that's happening in Maui right now is third world issues. People are homeless, living out of tents, no food, no water. People are dead. It's misery. Misery. And you could see it on people's faces there. You could see it in their eyes. Just despair. They're in complete despair over there. And we got this guy, this water conservationist in Maui talking about water equity and conservation. Good God, man. Good God. So remember that. These weak men are creating hard times. So I think it's just important that we get smart, competent people instead of woke people leading this administration. Not just to this administration, but just, can we please just have competent people in leadership roles? I mean, my God, we have the energy secretary that wants to turn our military fleet into all electric vehicles. What are you talking about? Like it's like we're living in like bizarro world where we have a energy secretary that is saying she wants to turn the military fleet into an all electric fleet. What are we going to have? Battery powered tanks and helicopters? These people are insane. They're insane. And she wants it all done by 2030. 7 years, folks. 7 years. She wants all of it, the whole military fleet done in 7 years, all electric in 7 years. We're not dealing with serious people. Unfortunately, these people are creating serious problems for the rest of us people that aren't insane. That is the problem we're dealing with, and that is starting to become more and more noticeable every single day. So, I wanted to get into, I found this pretty interesting. So when you look at normal trial, so I want to get into something Andrew Mcarthy points out. He points out a main flaw in the Trump Georgia indictment. This is pretty interesting. So when you look, and I think this gets to the heart of why people can't really understand what is going on in these trials, is because they're not real trials. All this is just a mirage. It's a mirage of justice, is what it is. It is nothing but election interference. And then you have the brainwashed Bolsheviks, the bootlickers on the other side. They just parrot whatever they hear from Joe Scarborough on CNN and in the Morning Joe show. So they repeat their talking points. So these people literally have to wait until they listen to their CNN anchors so that they can repeat what they say. These people are unable to think for themselves. They do not do research. They're intellectually lazy. And they just, honestly, and they don't even care that they're complete morons. So Andrew Mcarthy points out a flaw in the Trump Georgia indictment. And it's actually pretty interesting. And Andrew Mcarthy is not a Trump guy whatsoever. So, and it makes sense. So when you look at normal trials, what's the one thing that stands out to everyone? A crime. A crime. So like O.J. Simpson, he allegedly murdered somebody. The mob bosses were caught trafficking drugs or laundering money, etc., etc. You know, an actual crime. A crime that people can see. They know it's a crime. It's actually there because it's actually illegal. Well, that is why these indictments are bizarre. That is why they're complete bullshit. Because there is no crime here, folks. It's a facade. It's a mirage. All of it is nothing but a mirage. It's a piece of wool to pull over people's eyes so that they don't realize that the election is being rigged by our Justice Department. So what is the crime that Trump and 18 other defendants committed? Trying to reverse the results of the election? Is that a crime? No, it's not a crime. So I went into the law books, CornellLawUniversity.com. This is where I go to look up any constitutional law, any kind of law that you're interested in. You can find it here. And so I was digging through, and I searched for, is reversing the results of a presidential election a crime? Because that's essentially what they're saying, right? That's what they have everybody believing, that Donald Trump was trying to reverse the results of the election, and what he did was a crime. Well, I looked into it, and I found this. So reversing the results of a presidential election through legal and constitutional processes is not a crime. In democratic societies, elections are a fundamental part of the political process, and candidates have the right to pursue legal avenues if they believe there are irregularities, violations of election laws, or other issues that may have affected the outcome. Well, we all know Donald Trump knew there was irregularities. We all know there's irregularities, and there is irregularities. So if you're going to try and charge Donald Trump with a crime, and that crime is going to be reversing the results of a presidential election, then you're going to have to prove to people that there wasn't irregularities, that there wasn't any violation of election laws, or any issue whatsoever that affected the outcome of that election. They're never going to be able to do that, folks, because that's impossible. Because this is why it's important to determine no fraud and not enough fraud to overturn the election. And so I can't tell you how many times I hear from these people that are completely confused with that question. Was there no fraud, or was there not enough fraud to turn over the election? This is where the confusion comes into play. Because if they're going to charge people with crimes for trying to reverse election, they're going to have to prove that there was no fraud whatsoever. And they're not going to be able to do that. Okay? So challenges to election results are typically resolved through established legal procedures. Number 1, recounts. Number 2, legal challenges. Candidates or individuals may file legal challenges in court to address alleged election irregularities, fraud, or violations of election laws. Okay? Audit and review. Some states conduct post-election audits to verify the accuracy of the results. State certification. The election results are certified at the state level, and state legislatures or election boards play a role in certifying the results. The Electoral College. In the United States, the Electoral College formally casts its votes based on the certified election results, which are then counted and ratified by Congress. So what's the crime? What is the crime? And that is exactly what Andy McCarthy is trying to point out here. So I got an article from Twitchy, and it's hat tip to Brett T. And it's an article discussing Andrew McCarthy. And the title of the article is Andrew McCarthy Points Out the Flaw in Trump's Georgia Indictment. Dan McLaughlin recently published a piece in National Review explaining what's missing from the Georgia Donald Trump indictment. Any criminal act by Trump. He's been charged with conspiracy. In fact, every text he sent and every phone call he made was part of the conspiracy. And those on the other end were conspirators. He allegedly led a conspiracy to defraud the United States, but Andrew McCarthy makes a similar point in The Messenger. Where is the crime? Where's the crime? And so I got a tweet here from Byron York. There's a giant hole in Big Fannie Willis's case, the lack of a clear crime to which Trump and his co-defendants can plausibly be said to have agreed. All right? So here's Andy McCarthy. So this is what Andy McCarthy writes. Even though prosecutors bear the burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt before there can be a conviction, we can easily understand why the defendants have been charged. If they are charged with conspiracy, the indictment will clearly state the crime they allegedly agreed to commit. Like, for instance, drug trafficking, bank robbery, murder, extortion, whatever the objective crime may be. We understand that the prosecutors, the police, and the grand jury have established to the court's satisfaction that there is enough evidence to establish probable cause that the alleged conspirators agreed to commit a crime. That is what's so strange about D.A. Willis's indictment. She alleges that the 19 people named in her indictment are guilty of conspiracy because they agreed to try to keep Donald Trump in power as president, specifically to, quote, change the outcome of the election in favor of Trump. That's what's in the indictment. That's what they're charging him with. Change the outcome of the election in favor of Trump. That is in the indictment. Maybe they share such an aim. Maybe their 19 minds met regarding that objective. But in and of itself, trying to reverse the results of an election is not a crime. You may have noticed that neither Al Gore nor Stacey Abrams was ever led away in handcuffs. Yeah. So there you go. How the hell are you going to indict somebody without a crime? Where is the crime? O.J. Simpson allegedly murdered somebody. Mob bosses, trafficking drugs and money laundering. Where is the crime? Trying to reverse the results of an election? That's the crime? That's not a crime, folks. I just read you the process of reversing the election, of reversing and challenging election results. Trying to reverse the outcome of an election is not a crime. And so these people are going to have to prove, I don't know what they're going to have to prove, honestly, because how can this even continue as a legitimate case if it's not even a crime? How can somebody be charged with the crime that's not actually a crime? This is what I don't get. This is what nobody seems to be understanding. And so you have CNN, you got MSNBC, you got Bill Barr, you got all the talking heads out there talking about crimes committed when these are not crimes. These people on CNN, Joe and Mika, they cannot even tell you what the crime is. I ask people on Twitter, what is the crime? What is it? They can't tell me. They don't know. They say something about reversing the election results or trying to overthrow the 2020 election. That is not a crime, folks. It's not a crime. So I don't know what the hell we're even doing here. And so Andy Mcarthy goes on. So here's where we run the video of Representative Jamie Raskin and others trying to get Trump's electoral votes thrown out in 2016. Yeah. So this guy says, so Paxport1 on Twitter says maybe the conviction is not the goal. It's not the goal. I've been saying this for weeks. Getting a conviction is not the goal. All these are fake. Everything is a mirage. They are trying to influence an election. That is what they're doing. So the exact crime that they're charging Donald Trump for, which is conspiracy to violate rights, they themselves are committing by violating people's rights to vote because they are interfering in an election. And in fact, what the American people should do, and if there's any attorneys out there listening to this, wink, wink, the American people should file a class action lawsuit against every single one of these district attorneys for conspiracy to violate the American people's rights to vote. That's exactly what should be happening right now. So if I got any attorneys listening to this, you need to start writing up a class action lawsuit and you need to start bringing on as many people as you can. You have evidence. You have probable cause. You have a reason. You have everything you would need to file a class action lawsuit. So what are the requirements to file a class action lawsuit on the behalf of millions of citizens against district attorneys for alleged violations of their rights? So in other words, there should be a class action lawsuit against these district attorneys for the same thing that they're charging Donald Trump for, conspiring to violate the people's rights. So, for instance, they're influencing an election. So therefore, they are violating my rights because they're not allowing the democratic process to take place, because they're influencing an election. All right? So here's the first requirement. You need a legal claim. Identify the specific rights that you believe that have been violated by the district attorneys. You will need to establish that there are common legal issues affecting a large group of citizens. So what is the claim? The claim is these people are violating people's voting rights by influencing an election. So there you go. And I'm sure you could probably get millions of Americans to sign onto this lawsuit. It will be the biggest class action lawsuit that this country has ever seen. It would be astronomical. It would actually be a first in history because I don't know if this has ever happened. Because we've never lived in a banana republic before, which the Democrat Party is turning this place into. So number 2, class certification. You got to seek class certification from the court. I don't know. I can't see how that's a problem. So you see what I'm saying, folks? So exactly what they're charging Donald Trump for, which is trying to reverse the outcome of an election. First of all, that's not a crime. But one of the charges is conspiring to violate rights. So what they're charging Trump with is exactly what they should be sued for, violating people's voting rights. And that's exactly what should happen. And so Andy McCarthy's exactly right on this. So this person said, Sassy Girl in Cali says it's a disgusting misuse of the legal system. This is a disgusting misuse of the legal system. This is the most shocking, most disgusting, disgraceful misuse and abuse of our legal system than I've ever seen in my entire life. That more than I've never even read of anything like this happening other than the stuff that Barrera used to do in the Soviet Union. That's how far we've come, folks. While constitutional due process guarantees that every American is presumed innocent, it also dictates that no American can be charged with a crime and forced to stand trial unless there is probable cause that a crime has been committed. Is there probable cause? There's not even a crime, folks. So how can there be probable cause? This Georgia indictment's shit. This Georgia indictment is just the king shit. It is more shit than all the other cases. Because you have 19 defendants. There's no way this is going to be tried before the election. So what is the freaking point here? The point is they need to kneecap him and keep him in trial, going to all these different judges, going to all these different courts as he's trying to campaign. Meanwhile, draining his campaign funds, spending, I don't know, he's already spent $400 million. How is this not election interference? That's exactly what it is. And they know it is, and so do you. And so does everybody else. But if you don't like Trump, you're perfectly okay with the justice system being weaponized. And then you even do some kind of crazy self-justification by actually manipulating your own mind to justify what you support. kind of like what the Nazis did back at the rise of Adolf Hitler. So there appears to be no consistency among lawyers. What exactly is Trump criminally accused of in any of these cases? Nothing. Good question. Good question there, Ezra. So here's another one. It's not about crime, it's about politics. Absolutely. I'm pretty sure 99.9% of people in this country know that this is all political. What's unfortunate is how much damage it's doing to our justice system. The trust and transparency to all our intel agencies, our justice system, the Department of Justice, and pretty much every sector of our government is being destroyed right now. We wouldn't call McCarthy a huge Trump fan. It's not like they're charging Trump with bribery, which is an impeachable offense in the Constitution. This is how brazenly corrupt these people are. They are trying to throw Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life while we have a president right now sitting in the White House, well, maybe he's on vacation for the 500th time, who's actually been accused, and there is credible evidence of, meaning eyewitness testimony, bank records, photos, videos, documents, emails, a laptop, and somehow they don't even care about that. They don't even care about Joe Biden's corruption. They do not even want to know about it. When you ask them if they want an impeachment inquiry, Adam Schiff was asked if there should be an impeachment inquiry. And he said no, because the Republicans have no evidence. Well, then wouldn't you want an inquiry to find evidence? That's exactly what an impeachment inquiry is, to find evidence. So why would he not want one? This is what I'm talking about, folks. This is so political. It's mind-boggling. It is so frustrating that people are supporting this. It is mind-boggling. People need to get this Trump worm out of their brains and snap out of it and get their shit together. Because it's a damn shame that we're going to have to watch our constitutional republic be turned to dust because people can't get a grip on their hatred for Donald Trump. This is way beyond Donald Trump. Donald Trump is irrelevant. I sure hate to destroy my entire freaking constitution just to prevent one man from being president. I think it's a load of shit. I think it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious and ridiculous to destroy an entire country's constitutional republic to prevent one man from running for president. Don't you think? I think that's kind of ridiculous. But we live in ridiculous times, don't we? Don't we? We live in pretty ridiculous times. This is just what they're doing to Donald Trump is just a symptom of how bad our society is right now. All of this stuff has been brought to you by the Democrat Party. I'm not even joking when I say that. The last 8 to 9 years of all this bullshit has all been brought to you by the Democrat Party. All they had to do was just allow Donald Trump to be president. That is it. All they had to do was accept the 2016 election, and they couldn't do it. If they just would have allowed Donald Trump to just do his job, if they just would have allowed the American people to move on with Donald Trump being president, if they just were to accept the 2016 election, Donald Trump would have only had 2.5 years left and he would have been gone out of these people's hair forever. But no, they had to bring this country down the depths of hell because of their own personal vendetta, I guess. I don't know, because these people are broken. These people are psychologically and emotionally broken. And so they from 2016, the Russia collusion hoax, that's essentially what started it all. All the lies that these people got wrapped up in, all the bullshit that these people believed back in 2016, 17, and 18 with the Ukrainian impeachment hoax, these people still think what Donald Trump did deserved impeachment with the Ukraine phone call. You can read the phone call, you morons. You can read it. And I guarantee none of these people read it because they are morons. They do not think for themselves. They are trapped in their echo chamber. They are stuck in this massive confirmation bias, and they don't even want to get out. You tell them, dude, you're plugged up to the Matrix, and they're like that guy that eats that piece of steak in that movie, The Matrix, where he takes the bite of steak and he says, ignorance is bliss. They want to live in the Matrix. They like it. They don't want to leave it. Because for them, in order for them to leave the Matrix, they would have to admit that everything they believed was wrong. Nobody likes to admit when they're wrong. I'm sorry, they don't. Not even I do. It's human. It's perfectly human. But these people have been wrong for so long. They have dug themselves this massive hole, and they can't get out of it. They can't get out of it. This is why they do insane shit more and more. This is why we have escalated to now destroying our constitutional republic and the creation of a banana republic, all in the name of preventing Donald Trump from being president. It's truly astonishing how broken these people are. Like, all because you didn't want Donald Trump to be president in 2016? Really? These people talk about election denying. These people are the OG election deniers. They've been denying elections since denying elections was even cool. These people are so warped, man. These people are sick. They are broken. These people are suffering from some kind of, it's got to be Trump derangement syndrome. And in fact, I'm trying to get an interview by a doctor, and we're going to try and I want to talk to them about Trump derangement syndrome. And is it really a mental disorder that's affecting our society? Is the reason why we're in the situations we're in now is because we have millions of people that are being affected by Trump derangement syndrome. This truly is a mental disorder. And I'm talking about people when they hear the name Trump, their faces get red, their blood pressure increases, and they just go berserk and have like outbursts of rage. That's somebody that has Trump derangement syndrome. And then you have the more lighter styles of Trump derangement syndrome, the more passive-aggressive ones, where like hearing the name, they won't have like bursts of rage out in the open, but what they'll do is they'll privately plot in their minds how happy they are to see Donald Trump locked away in prison for the rest of his life. Like some of these passive-aggressive Trump deranged people want to see Donald Trump hanging from a tree. That is what they want. They want to see this guy dead. They would like to see him dead and gone. I'm telling you, these people are nuts. They are nuts. They're psycho, man. They're being consumed by hatred. And so they are perfectly fine to rip the Constitution up. And the worst part about it is it's not even them doing it, but they're allowing the government establishment to do it. So this same government that they support violating people's rights, people's due process, people's freedom of speech, ripping up the Constitution, the people they support are going to be coming after them next. You see what I mean? It's like what's going to happen is our country's going to turn into some kind of dystopian nightmare, some kind of third world banana republic. And the Democrats are going to sit back and be like, hey, how did we end up in this crap system? How did we end up in a banana republic? Because of you. Because you did it. Because you're freaking too consumed by Trump derangement syndrome, and you were not listening to the warnings that you were given. And you allowed this federal government to turn into some massive totalitarian regime, all in the name of getting Donald Trump. So because you're completely deranged with Trump derangement syndrome, you are perfectly okay with a Biden regime turning totalitarian just so that they can defeat Donald Trump? Why? Because he gave you cheap gas? Like, why? Because he was creating peace around the world? It doesn't make sense. The guy gave this country the best years it's seen in decades. It doesn't make sense. Why would these people want to destroy this man? Look at the contrast between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There is no contrast. It's like putting a diamond on a black background. Joe Biden is the black background. Joe Biden makes Donald Trump look better. Compared to Joe Biden, Donald Trump looks like freaking Mahatma Gandhi. All because they put this corrupt, crooked, dementia-ridden Joe Biden up on stage for president. Now they are stuck with the consequences because now Joe Biden made Donald Trump look like the greatest president to ever set foot on the planet. This is all their fault. All this is their doing. All because of their complete derangement for Donald Trump. They created this massive disaster. And frankly, really, it all stemmed from them not being able to accept the 2016 election. They were perfectly fine with Jamie Raskin trying to overturn the election. They were perfectly fine with Maxine Waters rejecting the electors, trying to overturn the election. They were perfectly fine with Democrats trying to overturn and reverse the election results. Until Donald Trump does the same exact thing. These people are nuts. This is when this all started. In 2016, when Democrats could not accept the 2016 election, they could not accept the Donald Trump win. And so therefore, they said, screw this, we're burning it all down because Hillary Clinton didn't win the election. Like, really? Even though throughout the entire 4 years Donald Trump was president, they got cheap gas, cheap housing, peace around the Middle East, a better quality of life, better schools, less crime, a more secure border, better policies, better foreign policies. Like, the list is a mile long on why the Trump presidency was night and day difference to this disaster we're experiencing now. But for some reason, they're terrified of him being president again. And in fact, they keep saying Donald Trump was a fascist. We haven't been closer to fascism than we are right now. In the last 2.5 years, we've been closer to fascism than we've ever been at any point in time in this country's history. And they can't connect the dots. They still blame Donald Trump. They still blame Donald Trump for shit that Joe Biden is actively doing. You have a regime that's turning into a fascist totalitarian regime, and somehow they blame Donald Trump and accuse him of being a fascist. It's like, what? These people are nuts. These people are nuts, man. It drives me insane. All right, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough me rambling on. That was like the longest rant I've ever did. But man, I had to get that out. That was just insane. But it unfortunately used up all my time. Anyways, Andy McCarthy's right. There's no case in these Georgia indictments. And in fact, I just read that these indictments in the state of Georgia are going to have to get sent to the federal courts because it's a federal issue. None of these indictments are going to see trial before the election. It's just not going to happen. And if they do see trial, the only reason why is so that they can wrap Donald Trump up in these trials so he can't go out and campaign. But that's okay. That's okay. Why? Because the American people see right through this bullshit, man. I'm telling you, every single person you ask about the Donald Trump indictments, they tell you it's political. Nobody can say what the crime is. You get 50,000 different answers. For the people that do want it to happen, for the people that do want Trump indicted, you ask them for what, and they don't know. All they say is, well, for trying to overthrow the election, or for the insurrection, or for January 6th. Donald Trump is not charged with any of that. And trying to overthrow an election or reverse the results of an election is not a crime. So these people are insane. But I'm telling you, folks, the majority of the American people see right through this bullshit. They tell you straight up, I was never a fan of Donald Trump until now. Because you're talking about trying to convince people to go against the system, that same system that's been kicking them down for the last 30 years. You're never going to get people to vote for a government political system. You're not. These people hate the system. The American people hate what they're going through right now. And they're going through all of it because of Washington, D.C. This election is not Republicans versus Democrats. It's the system versus the people. And I think in 2024, the American people are going to get their country back. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to leave these articles, especially the Andrew McCarthy article talking about the Georgia Trump indictments and how they're complete bullshit. I'm going to leave those in my podcast description so you guys can read that. Definitely read the Andy McCarthy piece. That is crazy. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. Plus, you'll see all the comments on Twitter. It's actually pretty interesting to see the comments. Sometimes the comments are a lot better than the content themselves. Also, I'm going to work on this class action lawsuit. I reached out to a couple people. I want to see if this is actually something that's doable. I think I got a plan here, folks. And I think just maybe, if it's possible, I'm going to hear what this attorney has to say. If it's possible, I think this is definitely something that the American people should jump on board with now. And a class action lawsuit suing Big Fannie Willis, suing Jack Smith, suing Alvin Bragg, suing all these district attorneys that are influencing our election, therefore violating the American people's rights to vote, I think would probably hinder these trials quite a bit. And maybe they may even suffer enough material losses to where they'll just drop all the shit altogether. But either way, these people need to stop. Whatever this is, somebody needs to come in and stop this shit because this is just getting out of control. And unfortunately, the only people that can do that's the Supreme Court. And you know what? I think they're probably going to eventually just going to have to step in and say enough is enough. You're going to put this off until after the election because you're violating people's rights by influencing and interfering in their election process. So back off. And so we'll see, but I'm going to get in touch. I'll let you know what that attorney says. I'll keep you updated with the class action lawsuit. I'm kind of interested in that myself. I just thought about that yesterday, and I actually did a lot of digging into the law, constitutional law, and class action lawsuits, and public officials, and government officials, all of it. I looked into all of it. I even got a template down to actually how to fill out the lawsuits, and it's pretty complex, and obviously you need attorneys to do it. So, but I think it's possible. I think it's completely possible to do, and other than it being a giant complex case, I don't see why we couldn't do it if we just found the right attorneys to help us with it. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I'll leave that stuff in my podcast description. Shoot me an email if you wanna send me something or you want me to check something out. It's StephenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. Follow the show on any podcast platform, and if you could, please share the show with your friends and family so we keep them informed with what is going on. That's the name of the game. That's what the show is for, to keep people informed. That is what we got to do. An informed citizenry is vital to the oversight of the government, where the governed have complete oversight of the government. And a vote for Donald Trump's the biggest middle finger we could give to this Washington establishment. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you. God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.